So I'm with Adam Ashe here, former Glasgow Warriors Scotland international, who's now out with LA Giltinis out in the United States. Adam, how you doing?
I'm good, Craig. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good, thank you. How's life treating you out there?
It's good. It's been brilliant so far. So that's us being out here. Elisa and I came out about 5 weeks ago. Obviously, in the middle of the pandemic, it was quite difficult getting out here. We had to go via Bermuda for a couple of weeks to make sure we could get all our visa processing done. But we're here. We had a 4-week camp in Hawaii, which was brilliant. You know, it was lovely time to sort of get the team together, get the team gelling and bonding, and we got plenty of training done out there. So yeah, we're back in California now. We're just at a place about 60 miles north of LA for a second camp, where the whole kind of reason we sort of got to be in camp at the moment is just to sort of try and keep ourselves in a bubble and away from obviously COVID, which has been kind of running rife over in this part of the world. So yeah, everything's going well. I'm enjoying it so far, and yeah, it's great to be playing some rugby in the sun.
Yeah. So you've obviously you started your career, most of your career has been in Scotland, and so United States. It's not the kind of first country most folk would think of to go and play the rugby or wherever. So just would you mind just going into just how that came about, and yeah, just a wee bit more on that.
Yeah, so yeah, I played at the Warriors pretty much since I left school. I was lucky enough to play a year on the Sevens circuit, which was fantastic. Got to do quite a lot of travelling. I got to go to the US that year and played at Vegas Sevens, which was brilliant. And then, yeah, I've been at the Warriors for the last 8 years. But yeah, I think like it's probably not the most common move that you would see in rugby, especially like, you know, I'm still 27 years old, so I'm by no means sort of coming to the end of my career. You know, it's maybe more common to see guys who are sort of 32, 33, you know, plus move over to the US. But for me, I just felt like I was at a stage in my career where I had enjoyed playing at Glasgow and, you know, had kind of achieved some of the things that I wanted to achieve at quite a young age and had a great time playing at Glasgow. But it was just time for me to kind of go on a different path and to have a new experience with rugby. And I'd been keeping my eye on the MLR over the last couple of years, and you know, from speaking to people that have played there, it did sort of spark a bit of interest in me at first, you know, when I knew that I was going to be leaving Glasgow. Unfortunately, kind of the first team that I spoke to was the LA Giltinis, and you know, after a few conversations with them and sort of beginning to understand what their plan and sort of mission was within US rugby over the next sort of 5 to 10 years, it really got me interested. You know, I think a lot of people will have seen some of the players that have signed at the club, and you know, I think the club have really wanted to try and get a high caliber of players in and want to really create a winning team. So that was something that really spoke to me, and I think as well the club have got a big sort of aim and goal around growing rugby within the US, and that's also something that I'm really interested in. And I think some of the things that I'm involved in outside rugby as well really sort of speak to one another in terms of me being here in LA. So I felt like there was a few things that I could sort of strike off by moving out here. Obviously being involved in the rugby, growing rugby off the field, but also some opportunities that would potentially present himself with me living in LA. So yeah, that was kind of the thinking. But you know, there's no doubt in my mind that I think this league is going from strength to strength, and there's quality coaches, quality players, and fantastic commercial opportunities that are coming around, because I think the game is growing here in the USA. So it's exciting times.
Definitely. Obviously, the LA Giltinis just recently announced Matt Gitto and Adam Ashley Cooper just joining the team. So it really shows just the kind of high attraction to LA, and that just from your short experiences with them so far, what have you noticed about them, maybe compared to some other players, that just really stands out about their quality and what they've brought to the squad so far?
Yeah, so they've obviously played with each other a lot over the years, like those two, and also there's a guy called Dave Dennis here who's our captain. You've probably heard of him. He's from Australia, played for the Wallabies a lot. He captained the Waratahs to the Super 12 or 14 title back in 2000 and whenever that was. But he's fantastic as well. So these three guys have played with each other a lot, and what's been interesting to see with Matt Gitto and Adam Ashley Cooper is that Matt Gitto's obviously a 10, so his job within the team is to sort of direct the attack and that side of things, whereas Adam Ashley Cooper, although he's a fantastic attacking player, he heads up a lot of the defensive side of things. So they actually have, when we're running things against each other in training, they have a lot of sort of communication with each other. Like Matt Gitto will go up to Adam Ashley Cooper if Gitto's been attacking, and he'll go to Adam and he'll say, how did that feel when you were defending? What was that like? Did you feel that you could defend it easily, or did it feel like it was difficult? So there's a lot of interactions like that, and I think just because they've had that experience playing with each other so many times now, that they've just got a really, really good understanding for the sort of strategy and tactical awareness of what to do and when to do it. And there's no doubt about it as well. Just like both players, their sort of basic skill level is exceptional. And you're talking about the real basics, just catch, pass, different types of passing and when to do those passes, and how to get those right nearly all of the time. Just in terms of running square, attacking a defender and passing the ball, like it's something that is almost at professional level, I think, underemphasized at how powerful it can be. But these guys can do this very efficiently, and I think it's something that a lot of the younger players are picking up on here. Is just how sort of well drilled the skills are of these guys. But also, like both guys are really, really good around the team. As soon as they came into camp, there's a lot. They clearly had placed a lot of emphasis on getting to know guys. Whether it was guys that had a lot of experience in rugby or guys that had just come into the team and this was their first professional contract or their first year out of school, and that was really cool to see. Quite often, what you might see with a higher caliber of player coming into the team is that they don't do that. But I think one of the things that, from speaking to the owner and the team manager, the Giltinis were keen to attract players that came from that point of view, where it was the quite holistic people and sort of, really buy into what's going on and want to get to know people and understand where they come from, their backgrounds, how they operate, regardless of what level they've played at. So you can see that from the way these guys operate, that they really fit that bill. So yeah, I'm just excited to learn from these guys and to play with them, because they're definitely world-class players and athletes.
Well, so just going back to your time in Scotland when you were with Glasgow, and that, obviously there was a time where, if I'm right, you got a shoulder injury, just towards the end of your time with Glasgow, and also just times with the 2015 Rugby World Cup where form was good but just didn't quite make it. Just wondering, just as a professional player, obviously skill development is really important, and everyone talks about skill, and you've emphasised about Matt Gitto and all these guys. Like, everyone looks at the skill, but there's also that mental side to it. So just with, like, obviously you've experienced a lot of positives in your career. Just now, how have you been able just to deal with the kind of setbacks or those challenges, whether that was not being selected or just injuries that you faced or falling out of favour with potential coaches, or just along those? How have you developed that kind of mindset just to keep going?
Yeah, good question. I think it's quite an individual thing, but it's never easy. I mean, I think rugby's a sport or professional sport in general, high or elite sport is, it's a game where there's a lot of highs. When things are going well, it's great, but there's also a lot of lows. There's not many jobs out there where you're literally playing for your position every single week, and if you don't perform, then you're going to miss out. you know, you look at, obviously within normal jobs, there's targets, and you know, your boss or your manager is going to be on top of you to make sure that you're driving things the right direction. But you know, I think for a sporting player, you want to make sure that you're contributing, and you want to make sure that you're having an involvement. And if you're not, it can be quite difficult to take. So yeah, there's challenges. Like, as I've got older, I'd say I probably deal with it a bit differently. But in my younger days, you know, I think as a young athlete coming through, you know, it's almost like you don't always expect to play, because there's sort of like a hierarchy of players above you that, you know, have been around for a while, and, you know the ins and outs of the game. So there's sort of that side of things where, as a younger player, it's almost easier to justify why you're not playing, and it almost softens the blow a little bit. But I think for me, once I sort of became more established and played more rugby, it became a bit more difficult to to sort of, like, if you aren't getting selected, to get your head around it. And, you know, the only thing that you can do is continue to just keep working hard, and try not to dwell on the sort of negatives, or not getting selected. And, you know, it's very easy to sort of get caught up in stories in your head and be sort of dwelling on these things for days. But, you know, I think the thing that can really sort of help is just having that attitude of, every single day, I want to sort of approach each day as an opportunity to get better. And where do you place your focus? Do you place your focus on the things that haven't went right for you, or do you place your focus on the things that are going to push you forward and maybe get you what you want? So that's something that is easier said than done sometimes, because, you know, there's no doubt about it, there are things that are just hard to take in life. And, you know, for me, one of the tougher points was probably back in 2015 when Glasgow won the league. So I had featured in, you know, 80% of the games that season, had been involved in some of the Scotland stuff. And then we had a semi-final against Ulster at home, and I had played 80 minutes that game and felt like I had went pretty well. We got a good win. And then I got completely dropped for the final the next week, and it sort of caught me really off guard, because, you know, I just wasn't expecting it at all. But that like, things like that can happen, and it's just, you know, you got to, at some point, people move on. It's just how long it takes, you know, like, and I think the guys that move on the quickest and can sort of just refocus their attention on where it is they want to go, are the guys that are probably going to move through the quickest. So yeah, it's tough. There's been some highs and lows, but for me now, I feel like being here, I have a massive focus on contributing highly on the field, but also growing the club, growing the game. As an older player within this squad, really driving the standards to make sure that this team can achieve everything that we believe that we can. So yeah, it's certainly interesting how your mindset and your attitude changes as you develop as a player. But yeah, there's definitely some tough moments, but I think that's life. And you know, I think the earlier that we can sort of learn how to navigate the tough things that come at us in life, the more developed we become and more evolved we become as a person, which can only stand us in a good place in life.
Oh, absolutely. So just like, would you say your focus when you were kind of growing up, playing your rugby, obviously through the age grade systems, and as you went out to New Zealand, that was just the whole mindset of just rugby, maybe compared to now, with obviously you've got your company with Grayson of Sports CPT, like, just that focus has is that just, what does that look like, your focus nowadays, like you've talked about, just the difference between the two, and how that perspective has, like, helps you as an individual in life as well, not just the rugby player?
Yeah, I think, like, certainly getting involved in stuff outside of rugby, whether it be in business, whether it be networking with people, or, you know, starting up a new venture, like, these things can be really, really powerful. When I think all rugby players and people in sport need to be aware that this is not a career for life. This is a career for 10 years. And, you know, you speak to a lot of people in rugby who haven't necessarily put the things in place to make sure that the transition out of rugby is as smooth as possible. And I can imagine, fortunately, I feel like I've done a few things that have sort of, that hopefully will ease the transition. But I think when people get to the end of their career, there can be a lot of uncertainty and fear creeping in, because who knows what's next. And, you know, it's really too late to be sort of dipping your toe into different things at 34, 35 years old when you're finishing up. I think that's something that should be done at a younger age. You can figure out if you like this thing, if you don't, it's a bit of trial and error, and then you can probably get a bit of clarity on which direction to go in. But yeah, that was something for me that, and I can't say that, like, for me, when I left school, I wasn't somebody who was like, I didn't like school, like, I just scraped past. You know, I was going to go to university, but I didn't really want to go. And then the rugby thing popped up. So I've never really been somebody who's been like set on what they want to do and like which direction they want to go on in life. But I've always been open to meeting people and sort of learning and knowing that other people know better than me. And I think that's helped me in the sense that Grayson is, he's now running the company full time. We've got 8 employees. Everyone's based down in London. And yeah, the company's in a fantastic place. We make health supplement products to help people with sleep, recovery, you know, pain, all these types of things. So that's been fantastic. And I think doing that has really sort of gave me different perspectives and new learnings in life that have been invaluable. Like, I really don't think that, you know, if I hadn't went through some of these things, I wouldn't have been as sort of, I don't want to use the word developed, but I would have been less developed if I hadn't have done that. And, you know, it's not always been plain sailing. There's tough moments, there's big decisions that need to be made, but I feel like that's given me a slightly different perspective on life that I think will serve me well in the future, because, you know, I think like the bottom line is, as a professional athlete, you have got a lot of time outside of rugby or sport to push on with things. And I think we really need to make the most of that time. And I think in other countries like New Zealand, you know, all the academy players are made to either work or go to university, which I think is a good thing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to explain how my mindset shifted, but it's more just that there's a little bit of confidence that I know that I can do other things now. Whereas like when I was a younger player, it was like rugby. I knew I could do that, but if there was somebody who was involved in business or say a teacher, I wouldn't necessarily feel like I could have a conversation with them, because I felt like I was on a different level. I didn't know how to do what they're doing, you know. But now, I don't know, exploring different things, it sort of broadens you out a little bit and makes you realise that everybody's just kind of like human beings and we're just trying to do our best. Everybody makes mistakes. The mistakes and errors that you make are often the biggest lessons that you learn in life, and you know, they make you better. And I think it's just a little bit of a shift in attitude that way.
Yeah, and obviously being able to focus on just things off the pitch, you know, which are for the future as well. Do you think that as well, that has helped you kind of, ironically, you know, just improve your performance, because there's maybe that peace of mind or something in the future, so you can happily concentrate on your rugby, not stress and not have that worry about, you know, everything, because, you know, there's life after rugby, so you can enjoy what you're doing in the moment.
Yeah, I think so. You know, it's nice to come back after a tough day's training and put your focus into something else. And, you know, some guys come back and, you know, maybe tend to overthink what's happened in the training day or whatever. So it's nice to have that switch off button where you can sort of just get yourself completely immersed into something else. But there's no doubt about it. Some of the lessons that I've learned throughout being involved in other avenues, whether it be the business or whether it be just like speaking to people and being open to learning, is that some of the lessons that I've learned there have been so transferable into professional sport, whether that be the leadership side of things, you know, learning from other people, how they go about their business to inspire, motivate, and to influence people, I think is extremely transferable to rugby. And that certainly played a massive part in my evolution as a player on and off the field.
Mm. And just with that on and off the field, you know, if you're experiencing whether that was Glasgow camps or Scotland camps or without LA Giltinis, how important is it to also learn off the field? So not like doing a drill or an activity, whether that's through the use of video analysis or your leadership groups, or even going to see a psychologist or a nutritionist. How beneficial is off-field learning to your development as a rugby player?
It's exceptionally important. You know, I think like even just looking at the off-field sort of knowledge that we have to sort of cram into a week here. We're out in the field training and we cover off a lot of things, but we actually we come home at night and there's a lot of stuff that's just to be learned by writing stuff down with a pen and paper, or, you know, guys might do stuff on their laptop. But in order to sort of get the knowledge from what we've been doing running about out there, to actually get it into our head, so that when we're running about in a game and we're fatigued and, you know, you can barely think straight, it's still there. You know, when you walk into the line out, you're 5 meters out from the opposition line, everybody's firing and that call gets made and there's extreme clarity on what has to happen there.
Yeah.
This is something that gets learned off the field. You know, you only get a certain amount of reps out there in training each week, and it's not enough to really instill that knowledge within you. So yeah, there's that side to things where to really getting up to speed with things and imprinting that knowledge within yourself happens off the field. I think one of the best guys at that is Finn Russell. He is like the ultimate when it comes to that, looking at the opposition, trying to find out where there's opportunities. And a lot of the, you know, we're out training, but a lot of his training for the game, the preparation happens internally. It's like a visualization. You know, he's looking, he's watching games and he's thinking, how can I manipulate that person, etc. Yeah. So there's that, but yeah, also kind of, yeah, like there's definitely times in sport where you know, you're going to be challenged, and you can rest assured in life that if you're facing a problem within yourself, or a conflict or a bit of pain, whether it be emotional or physical, someone else has felt it. So I think when you look from that perspective, it can kind of give you a little bit of an opening to ask for help. And, you know, people do that in all sorts of different ways, and there's lots of different routes you can go down. It could be from speaking to a mentor that's maybe a few years ahead of you, a bit more experienced, or speaking to a sports psychologist or a psychologist or a spiritual teacher. It could be anybody, or a parent. So I think that's one really big thing that I've learned, is just to don't be afraid to ask, because, you know, out of all the people out there in the world, if you're facing a problem, someone else has faced it. So you can always get help, and there's always people willing to help.
No, definitely. Well, thanks for joining us, and all the best for the start of the season, and we'll be rooting for you, and hope it goes well for you.
Thanks, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Craig.
Cheers. Thanks now.